He said, how would you react if God told you to go slaughter everyone at Oklahoma State University, even the virgins, because there was too much promiscuity and debauchery going on?
A good point, yeah.
This is OSU, not OU?
Yeah. Luke's pausing to think, well, I don't know.
The Cowboys versus the Sooners, I don't know. Who's more depraved? This is not to be taken as an endorsement of genocide.
I personally, though, I love, this is my favorite part of Copan's condemnation of the Canaanites. He said, well, add to this the bloodlust and the violence of the Canaanite deities. And then he quotes Canaanite deity. So he brings up a passage about the goddess Anath, one of the Canaanite deities. Quote, the blood was so deep that she waded up to it in her knees, nay, up to her neck, and under her feet were human heads, and above her human hands flew like locusts. And in her sensuous delight she decorated herself with suspended heads while she attached hands to her girdle. Her liver swelled with laughter, and her heart was full of joy. Pointing out how bloodthirsty these Canaanite deities are, and he adds, well, given this is the setting, Copan says, it's no wonder God did not want the Israelites to be led astray from obedience to the one true God.
The seductive power of the blood-covered goddess standing on human heads and so forth.
Essentially what this is saying is the bloodlust of Yahweh is justified because of the bloodlust of the Canaanites were evil.
Right.
But Stark had a really good response, so I'm going to rip him off one more time. What Stark did was to compare this passage of Anath to excerpts that he took out of Isaiah. And before the show, I asked Dave if he would help me do a dramatic reading of some of these passages from Isaiah.
I trampled down peoples in my anger. I crushed them in my wrath. Their juice spattered on my garments and stained all my robes. For Yahweh is enraged against all the nations and furious against all their hordes. He has doomed them, has given them over for slaughter. Their slain shall be cast out, and the stench of their corpses shall rise. The mountains shall flow with their blood. Yahweh has a sword. It is sated with blood. It is gorged with fat. Their land shall be soaked with blood, and their soil made rich with fat. Cursed is the one who keeps back the sword from bloodshed. The righteous will rejoice when they see vengeance done. They will bathe their feet in the blood of the wicked. I will not pity nor spare nor have mercy, but destroy them. I shall make them eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters. You are my war club, my weapon of battle. With you I smash man and woman. With you I smash the old man and the boy. With you.
Okay, so we got to cut this off somewhere. This could go on all day long, but I think that's enough to get the point.
It's from the book of Saw, part 4. And the bloody hand and...
On a more serious note, Stark points out how common it is in the case of a genocide that the victims are actually portrayed as this kind of irredeemably
just
evil
world theory.
Group. Yeah. So really, we don't usually take the testimony seriously of the perpetrators of the genocide when they characterize their victims.
We have to
and we
wipe
really
out
shouldn't.
The Jews. They're spreading the Black Plague.
Right, yeah. If you were to read Nazi propaganda or that sort of thing, it's not going to be depicting Jews fairly.
So we would never use that as a reference for, well, yeah, I guess this makes genocide justifiable.
Well, and you could go even further to say, you've read some of the Ugaritic texts, Dave, when you're teaching your mythology class. Are they really all that different in character from the Bible?
No.
Do they show that these people had no moral sense or tried to teach instill values in their people at all?
In fact, I've made the case that a lot of the Code of Hammurabi is a better ethical code than the Ten Commandments. I mean, obviously there's stuff we wouldn't want to follow in that either, but there are protections for slaves and women and children.
These people did sacrifice their children.
Yeah.
But, if you go back to episode 4, there's a case to be made that the Israelites may have also at one point.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, so the third point, the idea that the conquest of the Holy Land is not a case of genocide or ethnic cleansing. In fact, the Bible deliberately exaggerates the level of the killing that took place. This is a really convoluted argument, so I'm going to deal with it on a pretty surface level.
Rewind, stop, play. He just said that the Bible exaggerates something?
Yes.
This is an apologist for the Bible saying that the Bible exaggerates something.
Yes, but he does what he will try to do, and this is typical apologist doublespeak, is he will try to insist that it was not deceptive. It was exaggerations, but it was not deceptive because everybody was familiar with the genre. So, he'll cite this. Joshua 10:40 says, "So Joshua defeated the whole land, and he left no one remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord Israel commanded." And then several passages later, we find out that Joshua didn't actually kill all these people. There's still some of these pesky Canaanites around. Rather than admitting that's a contradiction, in fact, that's what Stark points out, he's correct, is that these passages are actually from two different sources. One is the Deuteronomist source, the other is the priestly source.
Of course.
They are contradictions. They've been woven together by an editor. But rather than consider that, Copan assumes there can't be contradictions here. And so what this is the text nodding to us. What we can see is that when they say utterly destroyed or exterminated or wiped them out, the text is telling us that's not really what they mean. What he's saying is that we shouldn't take the text literally here. We should read it as hyperbole. Here's Copan directly what he says. Joshua used rhetorical bravado language of his day. Just as we might say that a sports team blew their opponents away or slaughtered or annihilated them, the author likewise followed the rhetoric of his day.
And I think that's partly true. I mean,
probably.
So much of the historical accounts in the Bible are exaggeration.
But what's to stop me from just saying, when he says created in 6 days, he didn't really.
Exactly.
Right. Or, love all my neighbors, he didn't really.
And it still doesn't resolve the moral problem of this. Okay, so they didn't actually finish the job and kill every single last one of them.
Some livestock.
So that must mean that what they did was moral. To quote Stark here, they're just boasting. Yeah, boasting in the dehumanization of their enemies, boasting in the total annihilation of entire populations, boasting in the slaughter of women and children, and boasting that they left no survivors and showed absolutely no mercy to their victims. That isn't just rhetoric, it's evil rhetoric. Also was the idea that this is not ethnic cleansing in any sort of way. Copan informs us that there were plenty of non-Hebrews that converted and became Israelites, and there's laws offering hospitality to foreigners, or sometimes Israelites will go and marry people from foreign nations, like Moses did. And this is all to show that the Jews were racially cool with everybody in their region.
Sure.
So that fighting the Canaanites couldn't possibly have been ethnically motivated.
Because as long as you're including some people from outgroups, that must mean you're cool with all outside groups.
Right. So like when the Hutus slaughtered the Tutsis, it wasn't ethnic cleansing because the Hutus got along with many of the ethnic groups that existed outside of their territory.
Exactly. So it wasn't ethnically motivated at all.
But anyways, Copan says, so we should put to rest this idea of divinely inspired racism or anthropocentrism. God was concerned with sin, not ethnicity.
Sin like the slaughtering of kids.
It was the Canaanites were sinful, every last one of them, even the babies.
And the oxen.
So
and
that clearly has nothing to do with ethnicity. Of course,
they were just born sinful because of their skin color.
Of course, that's BS. Even if the text frames itself as being against their sin, which it often does, if you know your biblical history, you know that the patriarchs are absolutely. There's a whole motif in Genesis about how we need to find non-Canaanite wives for Isaac and Jacob because they can't marry these dirty Canaanites. If you look after the exile, they're pretty blatant about the racial component. Even upper-class Jews, post-exile, have their